So they now took him to the palace of Pilate, Pontius Pilate. And that was where they now scourged him. And they beat him 39 stripes, sister. Those hefty soldiers, they beat him up. It was a miracle that he did not die under the whip. They beat him up. The Jews said to Pilate to release Barabbas, who was a robber and a murderer. They wanted that criminal released so that this one could become the criminal. So he stepped into the shoes of the murderer and the robber. They beat him up. He shed a lot of blood, sister. By the time Jesus was carrying the cross, you couldn't recognize him anymore. They had put a crown of thorns on his head, so blood was gushing down from his skull to cover his face. The soldiers had beaten him. They had given him bloodshot eyes. They had given him swollen lips and all. Just imagine the beating that he got. That's why when Isaiah said that he was not comely for any of us to desire him, that's what he was describing. After they had beaten him up, and they now put the cross on him and say, carry it. He was tired. He was bleeding. At a point, you couldn't even see a man. You could only see a man that was covered with his own blood. You saw blood in the shape of a man. That was because of you, sister, and me. For the iniquities that God is saying to us, how long do you want to continue with sin when Jesus went through all of that because of sin? You couldn't see a man anymore. You could only see blood in the shape of a man, sister, at some point. It was mercy that he did not drop dead before he got to Calvary. It was mercy from heaven. Because the plan of God is that it was the capital punishment that befits the greatest criminal in the Roman world, that he must die that death. You couldn't carry sin and go and die just by falling down on that cross. You wouldn't have perfected the work of our salvation. The death that befits the old man, the Genesis chapter 3 man, the human race, it is capital punishment. And capital punishment in Rome, as at that time, is crucifixion. So he had to die by crucifixion in order to finish the work of our salvation. So at a point, he was so tired he couldn't continue. When he fell down again, they will whip him again until they got somebody to carry the cross for him. Simon, a Cyrenian. Oh, sister, look at what God did for us. And that was how he was trotting and trotting until he got to Calvary, where they now removed his cloth and they parted it. They divided it. So they crucified Jesus naked, because that was the rule in Rome. When you crucified a criminal, you crucified them naked. He was crucified naked, brought to shame, sister, because of sin. How can you know that about your Lord? And they are telling you to declutter from sin, and you're saying, well, it doesn't really matter, God doesn't mind. God says to tell you tonight that he might. He might. Not after Jesus went through all of that. That's why we need a miracle. Don't explain sin away again, sister. Run to God for a miracle, because he might. And Satan knows that God might. And he knows that God is a just God. And he knows that God will not go against his word. And he knows that God will not go against his justice, because he didn't do that, not even for Jesus. The moment Jesus drank the cup, the Father turned away.